So what are the factors? For example, as I keep telling, all the drugs may not be a good candidate for controlled release or sustained release. Okay, there are certain features you need to look at. Okay, so that whether there is a possibility for you to develop a drug in the form of sustained release dosage forms. So what are the factors that you need to consider, or what is the other way of asking the question is, what are the factors governing the selection of drug candidates for sustained release or controlled release? Okay, broadly we can categorize them into two factors. We consider them as biological factors are one, okay, and the other can be called as physicochemical factors. So what are the biological factors? Biological factors are nothing but these are the factors which are relevant to what you can call it as, yes, the half-life of the drug, sometimes something like the any intrinsic property of the drug molecules. These are the ones, biological factors. Okay, something like what you can call it as biological half-life, and second thing is absorption, and the third is metabolism of the drug, and even there is one more, what you can call it as stability also may play a role. Okay, so these are some of the biological factors that you need to consider. Okay, so they may ask you to classify, okay, initially what are the factors you need to consider, okay, while developing a sustained release dosage form. When it comes to biological, there are three factors: half-life, absorption, and metabolism. Okay, and when it comes to what you can call it as physicochemical factors, okay, these are the ones what you need to look at. Okay, one is something like the size of the dose, that's one factor. Second is again what you can call it as ionization of the drug, it's quite important. Ionization, pKa, and aqueous solubility. Okay, many times aqueous solubility of the drug is of paramount importance, especially when you develop a sustained release dosage form, because aqueous solubility is the one which determines the dissolution of the drug. If the drug has good solubility, so what you can call it as the dissolution is better. That's what you can call it as. So this in turn, the aqueous solubility in turn depends on what you can call it as the ionization of the drug. Okay, and pKa, that is pKa. Has anybody heard of pKa?
Partition coefficient.
Huh?
Partition coefficient of acids.
You're somewhere closer, but it may not be the exact one. You're somewhere closer. Yeah, what is Ka? Is it partition coefficient or something else? Think over a little bit. Hello? Yeah?
Sir, it is a rate constant, sir.
Yeah, excellent, Pa. Somebody gave me the correct answer. It's a rate constant. Which rate you mean to say?
Sir, rate of the reaction.
It's more precisely dissociation rate constants, Ma. Is it clear? You would have heard of acid-base equation. Yes, right from a PU days you would have studied acid-base equation. Yes. So K is nothing but the dissociation rate constant in this case. Is it clear? What is pKa? Please. What is pH? How do you define pH?
The dissociation constant of acids.
pH. pH is nothing but negative log of the hydrogen ion concentration. Why you are struggling? First as to pH. pK is you have to define on the same line. Okay, thanks. So next is a partition coefficient. Okay, partition coefficient, all of you know now? Yes.
Acid dissociation constant.
That is pKa. What is partition coefficient? Next. So partition coefficient is nothing but it's a constant. Please note down if you are not if you forgotten. Always I keep telling this. Please note down. Okay. pKa you people defined. You rightly told it's pK is nothing but partition coefficient. Sorry, partition coefficient is nothing but partition coefficient is nothing but concentration of the drug in the organic by concentration of the drug in the aqueous phase. Okay, which you have already done. I think the experiment will be is there in physical pharmaceutics. Okay, concentration of the drug, for example, people would have done even in their high schools. I remember even in their college, for example. Yes, +2 people would have done what is known as partition coefficient of iodine between carbon tetrachloride and water. Okay, so we determine the concentration of iodine in carbon tetrachloride, which is organic phase, by concentration in water. Okay, so that is about partition coefficient. The last one is the stability of the drug in the gastrointestinal tract. Feature what you need to consider while developing a controlled release dosage form. So now coming on to, okay, the first factor that need to be considered, okay, in development of sustained release or controlled release dosage form is nothing but the biological half-life. So biological half-life, as you can see, okay, so for an ideal sustained release dosage form, drug must enter into systemic circulation, as I kept telling, at the same rate at which it is getting eliminated. Okay, that is a criteria. Okay, so as to maintain a sustained release or controlled release delivery. Are you able to understand? Rate in is equal to rate out. So this I've already been emphasizing. Okay, the rate at which the drug is supposed to enter into the body should be equivalent to the rate at which it is getting eliminated from the body, so that you maintain a zero order pattern. That's a whole thing. That's a whole logic behind this. Okay, so how is the rate of delivery? How do you quantify, or how it is equated? Rate of delivery is equal to d by t. Okay, where d is nothing but the dose, t is nothing but the time, is equal to 0.693 into CSS into VD by T half. A very simple equation what you're supposed to know, and whenever you describe a biological half-life, you're supposed to know this equation. Can you people please tell me what are the individual factors now?
Steady state concentration.
Hello? Steady state, little bit correction, plasma concentration. Okay, yes, okay.
Yes,
Here, all of you have heard of the plasma concentration versus time profile. You have heard? This is the concentration which you are looking between. It's in the therapeutic window. Okay, between the effective and the safe limits. Okay, this concentration can be called as steady state concentration. Is it clear now? Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yeah, sir.
People should what is VD?
Volume of distribution, sir.
Volume of
What is VD?
distribution.
Yeah, excellent. VD is nothing but the volume of distribution. What is T half?
Half-life of the drug, sir.
Half-life of a drug.
Is it so difficult? See, it's there, ma. See, everybody see. The title of this slide is biological half-life. Is it clear? Okay, that is what is. That's the reason I'm telling you. This is an important criteria. Is it clear? So T half is nothing but the half-life. So this is how you compute or arrive at the rate of delivery. Is it clear? So each drug has got a characteristic half-lives. Okay, which again depends on, okay, the bioelimination processes such as KADME, that is rate of absorption, okay, rate of distribution, rate of metabolism, and rate of elimination. Is it clear? You please remember ADME. Please remember KADME. KADME is nothing but the rate of ADME. So the half-life eventually depends on these four factors. That's what I've written in the next slide. Is it clear? Yes. So the next slide will depict or shows, okay, the biological half-life is in turn dependent on absorption, okay, distribution, okay, metabolism, and elimination. All these four will determine what you can call it as the pharmacokinetics of the drug. Is it clear? Therapeutic agents with short half-life, okay, usually what will happen is there are three categories of drugs, or you categorize the drugs into three categories, okay, based on the half-life. Okay, so the preamble what I can tell is Okay, the introduction is therapeutic agents with short biological half-life may be an excellent candidate for sustained release, as it can reduce the frequency of administration. Okay, that's an excellent thing. What if you are able to do? Okay, yes. However, but if the drug has got very short half-life, in turn, what may happen is you may require excessively large doses of drug, which is practically difficult for you to maintain. That's what will happen. So basically, there are three kinds of drug molecules. If you categorize them, okay, based on the half-life, these are the three classes of molecules. Okay, these are three classes. What are the three classes we are going to see now? Okay, first is the drugs having a half-life of less than 2 hours. Okay, and next is the drugs having a half-life of more than 8 hours. And the last is the drugs which have got a half-life between 3 to 4 hours. Among these three, okay, which one may be suitable, which one may not be suitable? Okay, the first one, okay, as you can see, drugs with a half-life of less than 2 hours can be called as ultra short acting. Please remember the terminologies. Okay, yes, all of you. Okay, so first thing is, if the drug is too short acting, something like nitroglycerin, okay, yes, it's called as ultra short acting. Okay, it's less than 2 hours. Okay, yes, even levodopa is one such. For example, I've named furosemide is one such drug. Nitroglycerin is one more drug, for example, as I told you. Okay, the next category of drug is drugs having a half-life that is long half-life, what I can call it as. Okay, more than 8 hours. Usually are poor candidates. Some example of the drugs I've already given: digoxin, warfarin, phenytoin, and so on and so forth. Okay, so these are the ones, for example. And the last category of drugs, okay, for example, drugs having a half-life of 3 to 4 hours, something like, for example, if I can call it as diclofenac is one classical example. Ketoprofen is one more example, what I can call. Okay, so these are the drugs, okay, which have got a half-life of 3 to 4 hours. Among these, which are suitable? Okay, that's what we need to see. Okay, because half-life is one criteria which we need to consider a paramount criteria. Okay, yes, and the first thing is, okay, the last category is the most suited one. Please remember, it's the last category. Okay, drugs having a half-life of 3 to 4 hours are most suited for sustained release. Okay, and usually what will happen is, the next, when I come to the next next parameter to discuss with, we'll discuss this in detail. Okay, about the rest of it. Anyhow, see, among these three categories, one is ultra short acting, one is long acting, the other is short acting, the last one is short acting. So the short acting or, okay, the most preferred one for development of sustained release dosage form. Is it clear, all of you? So the next is, next criteria what we need to consider is absorption. Okay, so the yeah, good, that is the way. So absorption, in what way absorption plays an important role? For example, okay, absorption is a very important criteria. Okay, so you know that the GI tract, for example, yes, it is initially made up with this, as you pass through the GI tract, initially it is made up of stomach, and then it is a small intestine, and then it is a large intestine. Okay, large intestine again is divided into three parts: ascending colon, okay, and descending colon, and horizontal colon, or whatever it is. Okay, and usually what will happen is, okay, stomach may not be, many times may not be what you can call it as an ideal site for absorption. Intestine, okay, the ileum, jejunum, and okay, and these parts of the intestine, okay, yes, not even the rectum, ileum, jejunum, these are the ones which are what in duodenum, these are the ones, for example. So ileum, different parts of the intestine I was talking about, that is the ileum, duodenum, okay, these are the ones, for example, yes, which are the small intestine of absorption. Okay, and usually what, for example, when developing a sustained release dosage form, what we consider is how long is the transit of a particular dosage form through your GIT. How long it traverses? Anybody has an idea?
Sir, it based upon the tablet.
How long it
takes
may
time.
take to travel? I mean,
Means the
generally
length
how
you are
much?
asking.
Any standard thing is there?
Maximum 1 to 3
How
hours.
long it stays in the stomach, ma?
No, stomach and half an hour.
Nihal is somewhere.
1 hour.
Then small intestine. Small intestine. How?
Maybe more than 1 to 2 hours. Because observe, sir.
Okay, so please listen, all of you. Okay, because I don't know. Okay, Nihal is somewhere closer. Usually, the standard gastric transit time, only through the stomach I'm talking about, is 2 hours. Okay, okay. If a tablet is taken in an empty stomach, as he rightly told, it may get emptied in half an hour also. If you have a biryani, or what you can call it as a fat-rich diet, it may take more than 2 hours. Is it clear? Okay. So the gastric, only the stomach transit time, what I'm talking about, which is known as a gastric transit time, is 2 hours. Okay. Similarly, the intestinal transit time, it is somewhere it's called as small intestinal transit time, is 3 hours. Okay. So the overall transit time, as you can see here, I've documented here, the maximum it may take is 8 to 12 hours. That is a standard. Please note down. Okay. Yes. The transit time, okay, the gastrointestinal transit time is considered as 8 to 12 hours. So within this time, okay, whenever you develop a formulation, during this transit time, you expect almost 80% of the drug to get absorbed. Okay, during the transit time of 8 hours, 8 to 12 hours. So it is, thanks, Pa, thanks. It is almost 8 to 12 hours. That is what you can consider as the standard gastric transit time. Is it clear? So the absorption should be good enough. So 80% of the drug, I am coming to this point, 80% of the drug is getting absorbed between 8 to 12 hours. That is your requirement or prerequisite. Is it clear now? 8 to 12
Yes.
hours, we expect around 80 to 100% of the drug to get absorbed. Okay, so that's the reason we always consider that absorption parameter is also one of the very important biological parameters. Okay, but absorption is not that easy. For example, okay, yes, all the drugs may not be uniformly absorbed along the gastrointestinal tract. So what kind of drugs will get absorbed from the stomach? Any idea? Any idea what kind of drugs can get? Oh, because some drugs, what I know is, will get absorbed from the stomach. Okay, that is what is a general rule. First thing all of you have to remember is that, okay, most of the drugs, okay, what you encounter today or what you're using today are organic molecules. Is it clear? That is the application of organic chemistry now when it comes to organic chemistry. Okay, yes. So that is a huge application. Usually what we know is 80% of the drugs what you are using or therapeutic molecules what you are using, okay, or based on or organic molecules. Okay, and organic molecules are of two categories. Which are them, if you are able to tell? You can tell? What are the two kinds of organic molecules? What you would have encountered, what you would have seen? What are they? Anybody can recall?
Ether.
The two kinds of organic molecules that you can recall, not ether, ma. Okay, one are the acids, the others are the bases. Is it clear? Not so complicated. I'm making the subject very simple. Are you able to understand? Yes? Give some of the example of some of the acids what you're using. Acidic drugs.
Sir, salicylic acid.
Hello?
Acid.
Nobody is able to hear. Good. Good. Aspirin. Good. Good. Give some bases now. Any amines?
Paracetamol, sir.
Have you seen any amines? Have you heard of any amines? Amphetamine. Amphetamine is one. Caffeine is one more. So all these will come as basis. Okay. So what is now what is now coming to which may get absorbed where? Okay. Yes. Acidic drugs are invariably absorbed from any idea?
Stomach, sir.
Yes. So basically what will happen is, okay, why? See, one basic criteria, as I told you, for the drug to get absorbed. Okay. One is, as I told you, it has to be in the soluble form. Second is the drug has to be what? Any other parameter?
Permeability.
Yes. Nobody knows. No, ma. One is, okay, permeability, I agree. But usually what will happen is the drug should be soluble and unionized. These are two things which biopharmaceutics itself you should have learnt. Okay. Drug has to be in the, please note down, in the soluble and the unionized form to get absorbed. Okay. So somebody told me the correct answers. Now, for example, when it comes to organic molecules, I told you the whole class of organic molecules, they may be of two types. They may be either acids or bases. That is, they are either weak acids or weak bases. So acids will get absorbed from?
Stomach,
Yes.
sir.
Please, somebody.
Stomach.
Base will get absorbed from? Base.
Intestine.
Forget about acids. Correct. Okay, this is the general rule. Thumb rule is that most of the acidic drugs are absorbed from the stomach, whereas most of the basic drugs are absorbed from the intestine. But unfortunately, as I told you, okay, the transit time through your 8 to 12 hours. Is it clear? So it is always preferable for you, the drug is uniformly absorbed through the GIT. Okay. Yes, that is one yardstick or criteria or requirement, whatever you can call it as. Is it clear? A molecule to be a good candidate for an SR, okay, the drug has to be, first criteria is that the drug has to get uniformly absorbed through the GIT. Is there any such drug what I have encountered which will get absorbed uniformly through the GIT? There are certain drugs which will get absorbed from the site, whether it is stomach or whether it is intestine. There are some unique molecules. Would you like to get back on this, please? Yes, are you interested to find out, or you want me to tell the answer? Which one is easier for you? Tell me, ma. All of you have the internet at home, na? Yes? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
We'll find out, sir.
People should talk. Are you interested to find out and get challenge? That is a challenge. Good. Please
Yes,
find out. Okay. Which are the molecules, for example, okay, which will get absorbed uniformly through the GIT. That is, I mean to say, either in the stomach or the intestine. Okay. So next, moving on to very important classification. Okay. What I can call it as okay, BCS classification. According to this classification, okay, we have classified the drugs, most of the therapeutic entities, in 4 classes: class 1, class 2, class 3, and class 4. Okay, so there is a display board also, in the Sutix lab. Please, all of you can go and have a look in the first Sutix lab when you come to college. We have put it up, this particular one, we have put it up long back. Okay, the steps in formulation development, how helpful this particular classification is when you choose the molecule or in formulation development, what I can call it as. Okay, so class 1, what is class 1? Class 1 is a one, for example, these are the drugs which have got high solubility and high permeability. Okay, class 2 is the one which has got, okay, permeability is high, whereas solubility is very poor. Okay, class 3 is the one, for example, okay, where the solubility is quite high, the permeability is quite poor. Okay, whereas the last category, class 4, is the one where, for example, solubility is low and permeability is also low. Okay, so these are the 4 categories. Did you understand? All permutation combination. Is it clear? And the next one, I've just put up what you can call it as. Okay. Yes. So this is the one, for example, as you can see, class 1 and class 3, for example. Yes, as you can see, got good solubility. Okay. Yes, solubility is high, whereas class 2 and class 4, the solubility is poor. Is it clear now? So class 1 and class 2, okay, have no issue with the permeability at all, as you can see there. Okay, now coming to what you can call it as, I've given some examples of each class. Okay, for example, as you can see here, so class 1 are the ones which are highly suitable, okay, for sustained release or controlled release, whereas class 2 are the ones which are just suitable for controlled release or sustained release, and class 3 is the one, for example, which are quite problematic for controlled release or sustained release. Okay, whereas class 4 is the one, okay, which is quite unsuitable for sustained release or controlled release preparation. Class 1 and class 2, if at all the drug belongs to, okay, class 1 and class 2, so you can think of developing a sustained release or controlled release formulation, whereas class 3 or class 4, it's very difficult for you to develop into a sustained release formulation. That is what is the theme of this particular, okay, yes, classification. Okay, see now the next one is, as I told you, even this is there in our poster presentation or the in the pharmaceutics lab. So these are the different approaches what can be taken. Okay, what you need to follow, especially in developing a sustained release or controlled release formulation. You can see that. Okay, you are trying to bring all the classes into class 1. Okay, by different approaches. For example, before you try to develop them into a sustained release or controlled release formulations. Okay, so how do you convert class 2 into class 1? Okay, so class 2 has got what issues? What kind of issues it is having? Class 2?
Solubility.
Low
So you got
solubility.
solubility. Yes, ma. Yes, excellent. So solubility is poor. So to do something to increase the solubility. That's it. Okay, before you develop them into sustained release formulation. Is it clear? So what are they? What you are trying to do? Okay, micronization is one. What is micronization? Anybody has heard of? Simplest technique. What is micronization? Hello? What is micronization?
Making of microparticles.
Hey, people have studied micromeritics. Size reduction. Okay, not complicated at all.